Okay, sorry about that. I had an interruption. So going back to this example, we're going to isolate the radical, undo the radical, solve the resulting equation, and then make sure we check our solution. So we're going to go through two more using this process before we are done with our notes tonight. So that was number one. So number two. And we're again going to be following the same steps listed above. So start by isolating the radical. Already have it done, so we don't need to worry about that. Next up, we're going to undo the radical. So here I have a square root, so I'm going to square both sides. So that'll give me a 3x plus 7. And here I have to remember to square both the 2 and the x. Step 3, solve the resulting equation. So because I have an x squared and an x, I'm going to move everything to one side so that I can double bubble. When I double bubble this, let's see, 4x and x, 1 and 7. I need the 7 to be negative, so I have negative 7 plus 4, which will give me negative 3. So here I'll get x is equal to, let's see, 7 over 4 and negative 1. So again, we can go through our checking process. So to check, I'm going to start with 7/4. So 3 times 7 over 4 plus 7 equals 2 times 7 over 4. Alright, so this will give me 21 over 4, and I'm going to change the 7 to 28 over 4, so I have a common denominator. And when I multiply this side, I end up with 7 over 2. So if I continue my left side and add those together, I get 49 over 4. And is the square root of 49 over 4 7 over 2? Yes, so that means 7 over 4 is an answer. Now I'm going to check negative 1. So I have 3 times negative 1 plus 7 equals 2 times negative 1. So inside my square root, I have negative 3 plus 7, and I have negative 2. Well, right here I know something's wrong because I can't have a square root equaling a negative number. So that means that negative 1 is extraneous and my only solution is 7 over 4. Okay, our last example, square root of x plus 5 plus the square root of x equals 5. So again here, we're going to follow our same 3 steps. Okay, but this one, you might notice, well, what if you have 2 square roots or 2 radicals? How do you go about doing it? And so we're going to, this actually means we're going to have to do this process twice. So start with picking a radical to isolate. So I'm going to pick this one to get by itself. So I'm going to move the square root of x to the other side. Okay, so now I've got an isolated radical, and I'm going to square both sides to undo it. So I'm going to have x plus 5 on the left, and then on the right I actually have to FOIL that together. So we cannot 25 minus x. That doesn't work. You actually have to write it out twice and FOIL it. So when you write it out twice and FOIL, you get 25 minus 10 square root x plus x, because at the very end these two multiply together to give us just x. So now I notice I got rid of one of my square roots, but I still have one. So we're going to go through this process again before solving. So I'm going to re-isolate my radical. So here I'm going to isolate the square root of x. To do that, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I'm also going to subtract 25 from both sides. So when I do that, I end up with negative 20 equals negative 10 root x. So my x's ended up canceling each other out. To finish isolating, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10. So I end up with 2 equals the square root of x. So now that I've isolated my radical again, I'm going to undo it by squaring both sides. And when I do that, I get x is equal to 4. So with this one, we didn't have anything complex to solve. By undoing it, we got what x was. Sometimes after we undo the second one, we might still have some solving to do. But again, we do want to check for our extraneous to make sure it works. So we only have one solution. So 4 plus 5 plus the square root of 4, does that in fact equal 5? So I get 9, square root of 9 plus the square root of 4. So 3 plus 2, does that equal 5? Yes. So we have our solution. So again, just to kind of run through it again, on this one we have to do it twice because we have two radicals. Start by isolating one of the radicals. So I isolated this one here, and then we undid it by squaring both sides. Remember, this means you have to FOIL. We do not distribute a squared when there's adding or subtracting in the middle. Then we re-isolate our remaining radical. So I still have a square root left over. I re-isolate that and then undo it to get an answer. Now this one gave us an answer. Sometimes we might have to do some solving after we undo the second one. Okay, so make note of any questions that you have. Again, we're going to do this again on Friday, so we are doing radicals for a couple days. So if there's any type that you're still stuck on or any questions or clarifications, please write them down and ask in class.